And I'm not taking down that tweet or acknowledging that my tweet violated the Twitter rules. Up yours, woke moralists. We'll see who cancels who.
Full disclosure, I didn't really want to make today's video about Jordan Peterson. I actually wanted to make it about Nietzsche, but I was instructed recently that I should start using Google Trends to research my topics. And when I looked up Nietzsche, I could see that basically nobody really cared. What people do seem to care quite a lot about is Jordan Peterson. I realized that there was an opportunity to kind of wrap a video about Nietzsche in a video about Peterson. And now if you want to click away at this point because you think it's not relevant and I've tricked you, let me say this. If you don't know anything about Nietzsche, you don't really know anything about Peterson. So I just recently finished an audiobook. It was Yuval Noah Harari's Homo Deus, and it shed some light on this topic in a way that I thought was really interesting. Humans at some point early in the 20th century invented a new shared religion which Harari calls humanism. Humanism had three sub-branches. He defines these as liberalism, which we know as the ideology of the West, socialism, which broadly speaking was the ideology of the East, and in the middle, Harari defines a third ideology which he calls evolutionary humanism. The work of Harari lines up also very cleanly with the writing of Stephen Hicks, who was actually a mentor of Jordan Peterson. And Hicks writes about the 20th century in terms of three fundamental philosophies and their philosophers. Those philosophers are John Locke, with the inalienable rights of the individual, life, liberty, and property. This is the philosophy of liberalism. The other philosopher is Karl Marx, with his critique of capitalism. And the third philosopher, defining philosopher of the 20th century according to Hicks, is Nietzsche, with his Nietzschean philosophy, which Harari calls evolutionary humanism. And this makes perfect sense because Nietzsche heavily admired the work of Charles Darwin, and he basically took a hard evolutionary approach to his thinking. Okay, so I guess the basic contention of my video is that Jordan Peterson frequently says that he is a liberal.
Yeah. So even the liberals, well, like me, that's basically my position politically. It's like I'm a classical liberal. It's like, well, you're a right-winger. It's like only compared to you.
My argument, I suppose, is that he is neither liberal nor is he a collectivist by nature. He's in fact a Nietzschean. Friedrich Nietzsche was born in Prussia in 1844 on the cusp of a new age.
On the cusp.
Philosopher and a cultural critic, and his work touched on the topics of morality, of power, and of the meaning of existence. And he only ever really wrote one book. At least that's from his perspective. It was 1883's Thus Spoke Zarathustra. This is a fictitious parable that is regarded by some as a singular work of genius and by others to be utterly incomprehensible. Eventually, he was asked enough that he begrudgingly wrote a follow-up to Zarathustra, where he explained in more of an essay format his thoughts. He basically rewrote the book in the form of an essay. And to many other readers of Nietzsche, this is their favorite book. This book is Beyond Good and Evil, which I have here. Supposing truth to be a woman. What? Is the suspicion not well founded that all philosophers, when they have been dogmatists, have had little understanding of women? How could someone who can't deal with one of the most fundamental challenges of life, approaching a woman, how could you follow this person's broader philosophy on existence? This is just really indicative of Nietzsche's values. The one thing that Nietzsche despises above all else is weakness. He wants to reinstill the kind of savage ruthlessness of prehistory back into humans. And the blame for our domestication, he pretty much squarely places onto religion.
Particularly his critique of Judeo-Christian morality. Nietzsche saw Darwin's ideas as evidence that life is driven by a will to power, not just survival. He applied this concept to human societies and moralities. In his work on the genealogy of morality, Nietzsche argues that Judeo-Christian morality is a slave morality. He claims it originated from the weak and oppressed, particularly referencing the Israelites in Egypt as described in the Book of Exodus. Nietzsche contends that this slave morality inverts natural hierarchies. It glorifies traits like humility, obedience, and compassion, which he saw as signs of weakness. Meanwhile, it demonizes traits like strength, pride, and self-reliance. This interpretation led Nietzsche to his famous declaration that God is dead, suggesting that traditional religious values were becoming obsolete in the modern world.
In normal Darwinian mechanics, the strong survive and reproduce, and what is reproduced are genes that are conducive to strength and bravery and might. And Nietzsche regards this as a true vector of the evolution of a group. Under slavery, who survives to propagate their genes? Well, logically, it's more likely to be the subservient. It's the ones who keep their head down and keep their voice quiet and perhaps only whisper their true opinions late at night with their most trusted allies. And so what Nietzsche deduces from this is that slavery creates slave morality, and this slave morality would engulf the world. It seems, does it not, that there exists in moralists a hatred for the jungle and the tropics, and that the tropical man has to be discredited at any cost, whether as the sickness and degeneration of man or as his own hell and self-torment. But why? For the benefit of temperate zones, the benefit of temperate men, of the moral, of the mediocre? So here's the argument so far. Peterson is a humanist, and specifically he conforms to the branch of humanism pioneered by Nietzsche called evolutionary humanism. Some of you who are familiar with Peterson at this point might be thinking in your head, but wait. Isn't Peterson a Christian?
Whether you really believe in God or not. So let's just get it on the table. Do you believe in God?
What's the right response to that? By their fruits you will know them. How's that?
My answer to this is no. I think Peterson's approach to Christianity only further solidifies his position as an evolutionary humanist. Let me explain. I think that Peterson has done some mental gymnastics to redefine God. Peterson sees God as an archetypal structure that is embedded somewhere in the human psyche.
And that would be your God. I would say if you're a noble person, then your spirit is something elevated above your mere whims. And then there's a spirit that's inculcated within you. It's a consequence, perhaps, of your socialization, but in a more sophisticated way, it's actually a consequence of the spirit that you've allowed, as a consequence of your choices, to dwell within you. And that spirit has a nature. It might be allied with the truth, it might be allied with falsehood. If it's allied with the truth, it's a manifestation of what has been considered traditionally the logos. The more you're aligned with the truth, the more your spirit is an avatar of the logos. And that's just, it's true. It's religiously true, as it turns out, but it's also technically true. It's technically true.
Where the liberals and the evolutionary humanists go their separate ways is that Peterson would argue that because we have a religious structure built into us, into our DNA, into our psyches, and even into our bodies, that signifies that we should be religious. There's a moral value claim coming from that. The liberal would say that doesn't suggest that you should do anything. To argue that someone else should do something for any reason is fundamentally illiberal. I think this is a really important point to make here. Meta-narratives don't tell stories about fact. They tell stories about values.
You remember the bell curve?
Yeah, who could?
Okay, yeah, I was at Harvard. Was at Harvard.
Bookshelf looks like a battlefield. You're a fan of heated debates. Let's talk about the bell curve. Published in 1994 by Richard Herrnstein and Charles Murray, the bell curve delves into human intelligence, social structure, and public policy. The authors argue that intelligence is a key factor in determining success and propose it's largely hereditary. But here's where things get spicy. They also suggest that different ethnic groups have varying average IQ scores. Critics pounced, claiming the book promoted racial determinism and social inequality. Supporters, on the other hand, argued it was a wake-up call to address educational and societal issues. The backlash was intense. Many accused the authors of flawed research and biased interpretations, yet some praised their courage for tackling a taboo topic. Whether you see it as groundbreaking or just plain controversial, the bell curve sparked a debate that still echoes today. So what do you think? Groundbreaking insights or ungrounded assumptions?
I read the bell curve a couple of times. And so that is the fact, this fact of that predetermination in some sense really is a sorrowful, what would you call it? It's a sorrowful fact.
Determinism is a sorrowful fact. In fact, I made a whole video about it. See? I will put that in a link in the description and you can watch it once you finish this video. So for now, it seems that we face a problem where our opportunities and success in life are predetermined based on factors like intelligence, which are encoded in our genes, but we live in a society that is predicated on some sort of idea of free will and the idea that if you just work hard enough and you believe and are ready when luck shows itself, you can do and be anything in life, which conforms to the sort of liberal fairy tale, you might say, that we are accustomed to in the West. How do we reimagine society as a place where genetics are a limiting factor on your potential for success in life? Well, Peterson has some ideas for us. Let's take a look.
So, okay, so how smart do you have to be different things in life? Well, if you have an IQ of 116 to 130, then you can be an attorney, a research analyst, an editor, an advertising manager, a chemist, an engineer, an executive manager, etc. So IQ of 110 to 115, so that's 85th to 73rd to 85th percentile. Copywriter, accountant, manager, sales analyst, general manager, purchasing agent, registered nurse, sales account executive. 103 to 108 is slightly above average, right? 60th to 70th percentile. Store manager, bookkeeper, credit clerk, lab tester, general sales, telephone sales, accounting clerk, computer operator, customer service rep, technician, clerk, typist. So you see at this level, people have some technical skill and some ability to deal with complex things. Okay, that's dead average. 100 is average. Dispatcher in a general office, police patrol officer, receptionist, cashier, general clerical, inside sales clerk, meter reader, printer, teller, data entry, electrical helper. 95th to 98. Machinist, food department manager, quality control checker, security guard, unskilled labor, maintenance, arc welder, die setter, mechanic. Good IQ range for relatively qualified tradespeople. 87 to 93. Messenger, factory production worker, assembler, food service worker, nurse's aide, warehouseman, custodian, janitor, material handler, packer. People with lower IQs are more suited to more repetitive jobs. Under 87, is there something? Well, no. Right. That's a big problem. And it's something our society has not addressed at all.
Now, is Peterson advocating for some sort of new social structure where IQ is used as a barometer for people's perceived efficacy in certain trades, and then they get funneled into those industries based on how they performed on this predetermined IQ score? Well, it kind of sounds like it, doesn't it? Look, it's not my place here to argue for liberalism or socialism or evolutionary humanism, social Darwinism, some might say. But I do think that there is some value in pointing out that when Peterson says that he is a classical liberal, he is lying. It's simply not true. And that's it. That's all I have to say. All right. Well, maybe for the next one, I'll do something a little bit less sensitive. I'm not sure what yet, but I'm looking forward to it, and see you then. Ciao.